Welcome to another episode of the Energy Show. We're recording this on April 8th, 2025. I'm journalist Markham Hislop. And today I'd like to welcome back to the show Charlie Angus. I'm not sure if he's still, Charlie, are you still the MP for your riding? I know you resigned, but we're in an election. So are you still the MP or are you not the MP?
No, once the election gets called, all members of parliament become candidates, or in my case, I'm not running. So I'm Charlie Angus, the Resistance.
Let's talk about that because I have been reading your Substacks over the last month and you're on fire and you're mad about what's going on south of the border and mad about the, as you call them, the maple MAGA, so the Donald Trump wannabes in Canada. Let's hear it. Give them a blast.
Well, what we're seeing is the rise of fascism, and these are not words we can use lightly, but we're seeing the upending of the rule of law, the breaking apart of the democratic order. Last April, on April 2nd, Donald Trump announced his great liquidation day, where basically he set fire to the world economy. And what we've seen, I think, most dramatically is the silence from the political, economic, legal voices in the United States and around the world, people tiptoeing around this narcissistic megalomaniac who's threatened the future of Canada. So we need to be ready. We need resistance, and that's what I've been really working on. But also the language and the frame to see why we are in this historic moment, and to be able to analyze it without this usual BS talking heads CBC approach of, well, Mr. Trump said this. Do we think the tariffs work? Well, some say yes, some say no. It's like, no, this guy is an out of control convicted felon who's burning the world's economy. Let's put it on the table and say, so what are we going to do about it? That's what we're trying to do with the resistance.
Charlie, yesterday, Energy Media soft launched Canada 2050. And viewers, you can find the website at canada-2050.com. We are challenging Canadians to step up. This is our moment. And you and I have had this conversation. When countries face an existential crisis, whether they rise or they fall, depends on the quality of their leadership. So clearly, our leaders, our national leaders, it's pretty pathetic at both the federal and the provincial level. I can think of a few that I would respect, not many. And so that means individual Canadians have got to step up. How would you suggest they do that?
Well, I agree fully. The idea that someone's going to step up and save us is I think the worst mistake we could make. What's driven the resistance right now to Donald Trump have been ordinary Canadians standing up. The boycott is having an enormous effect.
Yeah.
People don't think that if they stop buying Kentucky bourbon or they cancel their trips to Arizona, it will have a big effect, not individually. But when you see mass numbers, and in March, air flights to the United States dropped 70% in the busiest month of the year for Canadian travel, that's having a massive impact. When you add to that, of course, pulling people out of airlines and disappearing them and putting them in, kidnapping them by ICE, that has now killed the American tourism industry, which millions of jobs are dependent on. But I think it's really indicative that on April 2nd, when Donald Trump was burning the economy to the ground with his so-called Liberation Day, four key Republicans came out and voted with Democrats against the illegal tariffs in Canada, and they came from Kentucky, who who are who are reeling from the fact that Canadians actually stood up and boycotted their product when we were their number one market. Alaska, which is, well, it was a really bright idea supporting MAGA, right? When you have to get everything through Canada. So they're panicking now. Maine, which is basically a sister province to, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, and their economy's reeling. So the boycott's having an important effect. As for our leaders, I think the challenge is to make sure that they stand up. And as you say, where is the vision? Because right now, what I hear in the in the federal election, it's like they're pretending that this catastrophic upending of the world order hasn't happened, and we'll get you this tax cut. We're going to promise you that. I'd rather have someone talk to us that we are actually in a wartime economy, and what do we need to go forward so we don't blow this moment?
Well, I'm going to take advantage of this, Charlie, because you and I
Go
talked
for it. Go for it.
there.
Yeah.
We are stepping up here at Energy Media. We've launched yesterday, we soft launched the Canada 2050 campaign. And you can find it at the website, canada-2050.com. We want all of you folks to step up. We're asking, first of all, the strategy we're proposing has three parts. One, add value to resources. No more shipping out raw oil or timber or whatever it is. Number two, electrify everything, because that's the lowest cost, most efficient way to do things. Three, uh, build the infrastructure that we need, whether it's doubling or tripling the power sector, building ports, building transmission line, whatever it is, build to make that vision go and make it work. What we want you to do, three things: share the website, sign the petition that's on the website, share the website with your network, your friends, your family, your coworkers, whatever it is, and then ask them to share. Ask them to share. We saw how powerful that approach was in the convoy occupation of 2022. That's basically how they organized. Let's do it for good. Let's do it for a strategy, a vision of the economy that hopefully will create a parade and our leaders will get in front of.
Well, I'm really interested in what you're proposing, because what we're seeing is the continuation of the scams by the same people who get all the money all the time. Did I mention Suncor, Imperial, the three oil company oligarchs in a trench coat that represent Canada?
That still makes me laugh.
Well, I mean, these are companies that have known for decades that they're burning the planet. They're facing massive lawsuits all across the United States. They continue to ignore their obligations here in Canada. And now, their supporters are saying basically, build us more pipelines or we'll break up the country. These are companies that have made record profits on our expense, on our backs. We built them a pipeline, $34 billion. We are actually subsidizing all the bitumen that goes down, the unrefined bitumen that goes down by the barrel. I think we're around 50 cents to the dollar is what the Canadian people are subsidizing. So, hey, if you can't run that at a profit, then why should we pay for it? Meanwhile, we see, Danielle Smith, where Alberta would have been the world leader in the clean energy revolution. She flushed that down. That's 30 some billion dollars flushed down the toilet. We see Doug Ford still hugging natural gas, big plants, still investing. They want to invest billions into nukes. I don't have a problem investing billions in nukes, but there are so many cheaper alternatives that can be put on the market right now. They just won't do it. It's the old boys club. It's the old network. And the last thing we need to do in the name of Canadian unity is burn the planet, wrapping it in a flag with more pipelines to feed those companies who aren't doing their part.
Charlie,
Did I rant? Did I rant? No, I'm just saying it as a fact.
Tell it like it is, man. Tell it like it is.
Absolutely, yeah.
Look, here's one of the things that I've noticed since I started doing Zoom interviews with global experts in 2019. The conversation that they have in Asia, and even in the United States, but certainly in Europe, is so different from the conversation we have here. We are in the midst of a technological revolution. AI is just the tip of the iceberg. Materials and biogenetics, and I mean, our field is energy, and so we see ways to generate electricity and batteries and EV. It's a revolution that's upending the global economy. And what do we do here in Canada? We ask, may we please do the same thing we've always been doing and sell you our raw materials so you can make batteries out of it, so you can make some other, processed good. And we desperately need some original thinking. And here's the thing. Mark Carney is a banker. He's got a PhD in economics, and he said some good things on the. He's leading the parade, and he really doesn't have a strategy. And the rest of them are not even close. It's the old tax cuts and the usual kind of stuff. Where are the original ideas? That's what we need.
Well, it's really important because there was a real moment where we could have, with the Trudeau government, they were going to imitate the Biden Inflation Reduction Act, which created, hundreds of thousands of jobs. They were all gung ho that they were going to do it, and they dragged their feet on the investment tax credits that would have gotten the green energy projects off the ground. And by the time it finally started to move, well, the election was called. Meanwhile, they got $34 billion out the door and built TMX pipeline without blinking. We had the conservatives who did everything they could to stop the offshore accord, the rewriting of the offshore accord so that you could add clean tech to offshore wind, where you've got, off Martha's Vineyard, off New England, projects that are going to be giving energy to 250, 400,000 houses. And the conservatives were literally screaming for 8 hours in the votes to try and stop us from even hearing the vote calls being made on just updating a provincial legislation on allowing offshore clean energy. And now Pierre Poilievre is saying that he's going to, rip up the red tape and get oil off Nova Scotia, Newfoundland. The problem is the market's not there. The market is gone. We saw it go with Bay du Nord. We've seen that there's been no new interest in oil offshore, but in the campaign, they're running that they're going to rip up red tape. They're going to build pipelines. They're going to get LNG to Germany. I was in Berlin. I met with the German government. They said, don't waste your time talking to us about LNG. We've got what we want. We are going to transition away from LNG faster than you guys can provide it. So talk to us about clean energy. And back home, we're still talking about the 20th century and how great it'll be when we finally get our 20th century economy up to speed.
Let me tell you a great story. So Ever Technology came out of the technology itself to make advanced geothermal came out of the oil sands. And these guys, what they did is they developed a way to make big radiators under the Earth's surface. So you drill
Mm-hmm.
a couple of holes and then you join up the well bores and then you pour water in the top and it heats up by the Earth's heat and it comes out the other end really hot and you can make electricity or heat a district heating, whatever you want. Ever Technology is called. And they proved it in Alberta at a Rocky Mountain House pilot project. It was all great. Where did they go for their first commercial project? Germany, south of
Yeah.
Berlin. Why? Because the EU offered them 90 million euros as a grant, and then the German government gave them 251 euros per megawatt hour as a feed-in tariff to develop the technology and get it proved out there. Why couldn't we have done that in Canada? Why
Well,
couldn't we? That should have been a national champion in the geothermal space for us. Instead, they went off to Germany.
it's really, I think, important for people in the rest of the country to recognize the incredible power, like skill level that's in Alberta on the energy sector.
Oh,
To create a clean energy economy, I mean, you look at Edmonton, it's basically one giant industrial energy factory. And when I was out there, I've been out there a number of times. The myth that they're creating is that these are, blue collar guys who are going to drive their pickup trucks and burn as much gas as possible, and they're mad as hell at everybody else. The people that I met with were saying, listen, we're an energy region. We create energy. We don't care how the energy is made, but we will make it. If you want clean energy, we're the people. So we have the tech, we have the skill. We have the ability to put together companies and ideas in a way that no one else has. But what we have is ideology. I mean, Danielle Smith, who is, she's another political arsonist, wrecked the clean energy opportunities in Alberta. Those companies aren't coming back, but we're not taking advantage of the skill level we have and the incredible resources. I mean, just behind my house, just over the hill and a little far away, there's a cobalt refining plant that was paid for with huge investment by the U.S. military. They're investing to get our cobalt refined so that they can take it. Now, I don't know what's going to happen now with the fact that they see us as an enemy nation, but sure as heck, I don't think the U.S. military should be investing in our resources when we should be supplying refined cobalt and refined other critical minerals to the world market.
Charlie, I've said this before, and I'll say it many, many times in the future. And our problem is leadership. Our problem is vision. We don't have a vision for what our economy should look like in 2050. And you take Danielle Smith as an example. I know for a fact, because I interviewed her about this exact issue, she thinks like OPEC thinks. Literally, the narratives that the Saudis brought over in 2023 as part of the World Petroleum Congress, She parroted all of that back. Her thinking about oil and gas is dictated by OPEC. And OPEC says we're going to have a major growth in oil demand between now and 2050. The same with gas. And so she goes, well, why wouldn't we want to double oil production? Because we're going to have all this much more demand because of the global south. They're so far behind, they think they're ahead.
Well, 40% of energy right now this year is now clean tech. We're also in a we're at the tipping point catastrophically. I mean, heck, I wish climate science wasn't true, but Exxon knew it was true in 1982. The American Petroleum Institute knew it was true in 1968. They had the best science in the world. What they've been doing ever since is lying to us. So let's make a plan about what's reasonable. And this is the concern. And to your point about our lack of leadership, and I've been 20 some years in Parliament, and now maybe I can be a renegade and say what I think. But we always lived for the next bump in the polls. We always focused on the next press release. I actually think Canadians are ready to have someone say, listen, this transition that we're in, it's going to be tough. This situation with the United States is going to hurt. It's going to be long term. This is what we need to look at doing. And it's not going to be easy. This whole notion of a wartime economy, I think Canadians understand. I have people saying this summer we're starting a victory garden. So ordinary Canadians are doing this, but they're still getting fed this slop of like soundbite and message box from all the political parties, and they're letting Canadians down. And that adds to cynicism. And cynicism, I think, adds to distrust. And that's how MAGA and MAGA Maple have been making their way all these number of years of undermining confidence, because we're not hearing people say what actually needs to be said. And I think Canadians are ready for that conversation.
I went to a seminar one time about narratives by a Stanford psychologist, and he said the only narrative that will beat a fear and an anger narrative is a hope and optimism narrative. And the hope and optimism narrative around the economy and energy, where is it? I don't see it. And if we're going to convince Canadians that we need to do things differently, that we can't, we have to build something to resist the economic pressure that Trump is applying to us, we need a vision. We need to have that hope and optimism narrative, or the hope and optimism narrative that supports the vision, so people understand and they can get behind it. And our leaders simply don't have that. I can't look anywhere in the political landscape in Canada and see the vision and the narrative to support it.
Well, it's a really important point. I mean, one thing I've been doing with these rallies, the resistance tour, reaching out to people, is trying to frame a way of people not being afraid, because I think hope is essential. But hope can't be some kind of slogan on your coffee cup in the morning that you read, right? And that's what it gets reduced to. And when I've been doing these talks, I never downplay the threat that we're facing, or the fact that we may be in for much more difficult times ahead, because we don't know what we're going to deal with the narcissist criminal from Mar-a-Lago. But people need to have a sense of hope that it's possible. But for hope to be grounded in anything, there needs to be a determination and a plan that we can follow through. And that, to me, is what's missing. We get a lot of bubbly optimism from some leaders, and we get all negativity from others. Where's the Goldilocks moment where it says it's not going to be easy, but as Canadians, we've been through tough times before, and this is how we're going to do it. That's the language that I find has been resonating incredibly with Canadians, and it's been amplified back at me from ordinary Canadians who are saying, this is what I'm doing. I'm doing my part. I am resolute. I am going to defend our country, but I want to know that our nation is going to be led by people who are going to defend the country. And we're also looking at the rest of the world and saying, well, where are your leaders right now? Because I think Canada, to the rest of the world, we've shown a really strong unified front, other than traitors like Preston Manning and Danielle Smith and that crew. But I think the rest of Canada, what Canada's shown the world, has been really profound. So now let's follow through and let's not blow it.
This almost sounds like every other policy we do, which we talk a good game and we never deliver. And I would say this time we've shown the unified front, but we're still our game. We need to up our game. We need to
We got to
step
get our
up.
game together. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
But I think we can't downplay the extraordinary thing of standing up so resolutely because you look
Yes.
at the
Fair
UK,
enough.
they're stumbling around. The Europeans have been hemming and hawing. I think what Canada did from the get-go is say, no, we're going to stand up to you. And Donald Trump has really lowered the temperature with us. Maybe it's because he's trying to help Poilievre in the election. I don't know. That's one of the theories. But it's obvious that when we stood up and we were willing to take the punches, that they've had to rethink things. I love Pete Navarro coming out and saying, "Come on, Canada, stop with all that tough hockey talk. You're freaking us out." It's like, oh yeah, you're telling us that we don't have a right to exist as a nation, and as soon as we say we're going to pull the jersey over your head and and clock you on, now you're worried. So we have stepped up, but it's going to be what are we going to do in the long term, and I think that that's where the pressure has to come now, and that's where we need to see leadership. And I'm hoping coming through this election that we'll get some stability, but I'm not seeing the vision yet.
Now, you mentioned the resistance and the resistance tour, and you're going to be in my neck of the woods here later in the week in the NIMO on Friday and Courtney on Thursday on Vancouver Island. But tell us about the resistance tour. What's that all about?
Well, people just started asking me to come. I started doing speaking about what we're doing, and it's been really amazing because we're getting requests everywhere. So yeah, April 10th, we're going to be in Cumberland, and we're going to be in Nanaimo. I'm going to Edmonton. I've been wanting to get into Alberta for some time, sort of to take the fight to the MAGA Maple crowd. And that's going to be. I mean, we've got I think almost 500 tickets. They're not sold. We just had to reserve them in Edmonton. Now people are saying, why aren't you in Calgary? When are you coming to Canmore? And why aren't you in Saskatchewan? Well, I'll get there. I don't even know how we're going to do this. I agreed to come out to Vancouver Island because my colleagues, Gord Johns and Lisa Marie Barron are in a fight, and they talk about vote splitting on Vancouver Island. If you want to stop MAPA-MAGA, those are the NDP is the strong vote there. So I'm going out. They'll be at the event speaking, but it's the resistance tour. I'm talking about what I'm hearing, what I'm seeing, and giving people opportunities to think ways through these unprecedented times we're in. And it's been really exciting. It's been kind of crazy. It's kind of got a feeling of a religious revival. Canadians are suddenly very proud and very determined. And I think it's going to be a really great opportunity to get into Western Canada and show the rest of Canada just how proud the West is of their heritage and their country.
On the weekend, I did a PBS show called White House Chronicle, and with a couple of veteran journalists there, and it was all about Canadian rage over Trump's tariff threats. And the point that they made, both on air and off air, was that Americans just don't understand. Like they're just not tuned in yet to how angry Canadians are and how determined we are to defend our sovereignty and to build an economy and a political system that can withstand the kind of pressure that Trump's bringing to bear. And I agree with you. The response to that video was I wouldn't say it was overwhelming, but it was really positive. And people were saying, yes, we're angry, we're not giving in, we're not walking away, and we are going to do whatever it takes to maintain our sovereignty and our prosperity.
Well, I that anger thing, I didn't expect it the way it came out. But again, when I was in Europe and I had to deal with these Republican congressmen who were just goofballs and they were laughing and making stupid jokes about taking over Canada. And like then they realized, well, I wasn't laughing. And then one of them went up and came up to me and he went to touch my Canadian lapel pin. He said, "Hey, Canada." And I just said to him, "Don't you ever touch our flag." And then he stepped back and he goes, "Well, I was just joking." And then I said, "You'll die before you ever touch our flag." And I'm not joking. And the Republicans cleared out of the room. It was like one of those fancy cocktail things. And it just came out of my gut. It's like, no, we will not be disrespected like this. And you come here to a NATO meeting where Canada is present and we're willing to stand up for Ukraine while you're selling them out. And you think you can come in here and manhandle our flag and me and it's all funny. It's not funny. So that rage and determination is unprecedented. But I will say the amount of people from the United States who contact me every day, it's not only moving, but it's really frightening how scared they are. They're seeing their democracy being taken away from them, and they're fighting back. But the rule of law is withering fast under the duplicity of the Justice Department, the Supreme Court. The Democrats, are they there? Are they there still? I don't know. Don't hear much about them. But it's ordinary Americans who are taking the fight, and so we are in a frightening time. And I think as long as we are aware of that, but also aware of our strengths, we can't be complacent.
Well, good luck on your resistance tour, Charlie. We'll see you, I guess, on Friday in Courtney. We're going to be reporting on that. So thank you very much for doing this.
I look forward to seeing you there. Take care.
Thanks for watching the show. We are on a mission to reach 10,000 subscribers and over 1 million views. If you're enjoying the content, give us a thumbs up, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to our channel. Thanks for being part of our community.